Welcome, Wargamers, to the mortuary science field trips of the mortal realms, because today we are talking all about the Nighthaunt Processions. These are the sub-factions of the Nighthaunt army. And they give us, as gamers, a glimpse into just how far we can stretch our own personal lore and create some really cool, memorable characters. Really quickly, before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Grot Skull's Workshop. This is a store over on Etsy. Awesome little store. They make gaming tokens to keep track of all your buffs and debuffs. And the guys over there were kind enough to send me several samples, and they come in different patterns for each Grand Alliance. And I took a whole bunch to Vault Wars to give away as raffle prizes. Folks seemed really excited about that. I used them for my games as well. And if you're interested in looking for some gaming tokens, I do have a link and a discount code for you in the description. It's not an affiliate link, it's not a paid ad or anything like that. They just reached out and asked if I could give a shout out, and hey, as one small business to another, I am more than happy to. So go check them out. And so as a quick recap, we've spent the last two videos in the Nighthaunt series talking about the how and the why of Nighthaunt. From their origins in the Necroquake to how Lady Olander galvanized them into a vanguard army for Nagash that uses terror and despair as weapons, just as any sword or shield. But this is far from a cookie-cutter army. Every unit is a specifically designed punishment, and each procession, meaning sub-faction, has a personality of sorts, dictated by their leadership. So things like how they fight and what units they have at their disposal. Because remember, Nighthaunt armies are constantly collecting more spirits and souls and adding them to their number. When the Necroquake happened, all these ghosties were born all across the realms. It says there's billions of them, and so they need to be collected and brought into an army. There's that. There's also the souls that they find along the way or of their defeated enemies that are pressed into service. And so in this video, we're going to cover the 4 big Nighthaunt processions that are in the book, and while some of them do specialize in certain kinds of units or tactics, keep in mind that any procession has access to any type of unit. So when I say that a procession favors a certain type of unit, it does not mean that you are playing it wrong, quote unquote, if you don't bring one of those. Lore, in my opinion, is not meant to be restrictive, but to highlight what makes each procession unique. From there, you can do whatever you want. And so we'll kick it off with the Grieving Legion. These are sort of the poster boys and girls of the Nighthaunt. This is the personal procession of Lady Olander and Kurdos Valentian, the Craven King. There are more named characters, of course. This is the one, it seems like Games Workshop always puts all of the named characters into one sub-faction. This would be the one. One interesting lore bit I did not expect about this was they were formerly known as the Legion of Grief, one of the biggest assemblages of Nighthaunt to exist when they first formed, and this was showcased in the book Forbidden Power, a campaign expansion that came out during 2nd edition. This is also the story where Lady Olander takes out the Celestin Prime by rusting him to death in real time. Essentially, this is right after the Necroquake happened. Lady Olander is still in the process of turning these things into an army, and so she takes as many as she can muster and just makes a beeline for a storm vault that the Celestin Prime is going to be at, and makes a huge assault. This is actually the battle where they're trying to free the soul of Catacross to then go on and lead the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. But within the context of this story, Lady Olander just takes anything. She just grabs anything in her, range of power and throws it at a storm vault. So it's not quite like an organized procession as we would know them now. But after that story, we fast forward a little bit, and we pick up with the Legion of Grief. And it seems as though Lady Olander has culled her forces and restructured them. Rather than being an endless mass of rabble that she could throw together on a whim, the procession now reflects the aristocratic nature of Dolorum, the home province of Lady Olander. So there's a lot more formality to it, a lot more structure and leadership and a court intrigue. In fact, they shuttered off any undead that the Soulblight Gravelords would use, and just kind of differentiating themselves, right? They kind of have that same regal facade and order and command structure and stuff. They just do it in a more ghosty way. And when this restructuring was happening and it was taking on more of the face and the feel of Dolorum specifically, Lady Olander made big use of every jailer, executioner, and criminal in the cells of Dolorum. And I would kind of go out and say that her faction, right, the Grieving Legion, I feel really displays the punishment side of Nighthaunt more than any of the other ones, right? This is her curse and her weapon. She goes around, she sows terror and dismay into her enemies, and then breaks them as a result. This is all before endless waves of undead swarm in for the kill, and all of her, jailers and executioners are there specifically with the theme of administering righteous judgment upon every soul, which I think makes a good deal of sense. Because Lady Olander, if you watch that video, herself is defined by punishment for her deeds in life, and so it makes perfect sense that there would be sort of a little bit of a trickle-down vibe with her legion. Or rather, her procession. But I thought that was really cool. I never heard a follow-up to the Legion of Grief, and now it's like, well, it just kind of changed. It got a little bit more flavor, a little bit more lore, and boom, the Grieving Legion. Now, next up is the Emerald Host, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this debuted first in a White Dwarf article. And the Emerald Host is super interesting. Regardless of where it first came up, that's where I first read it, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Essentially, it's Lady Olander's hitmen. The entire procession is highly specific to a single curse or hex that Lady Olander can place upon an enemy, known simply as the Emerald Curse. When she does this right, and it does take an immense amount of power to do, and she cannot do it constantly, she needs to recharge before she can, but when she does it, she'll mark a target, so let's say, Bill the Free Guild General. Well, when that happens, this procession is dispatched to kill that target. The victim, as a result of this curse, loses all color in their vision except to see the green glow of their pursuers. Like, they lose all color except for the Nighthaunt that are coming for them. They can see them. So it's this idea of, again, sowing fear, this expectation and anticipation of what's to come. Now, this procession that's dispatched, because they are Nighthaunt, because they are ethereal, they can ride for eternity. They do not need rest. They are fast as all get out. There is no wall that you can hide behind, nothing. They will get their target. And so it's just a matter of time. The actual procession is made up of very specific characters. In fact, they were all the household knights and royalty who sought to oust Lady Olander when she was alive. Again, there's a whole backstory there. She basically usurped power to control everything, and the aristocracy of Dolorum was like, how do we get rid of this chick? And she put a kibosh on that real fast. And the moment that Nagash granted her power and status by making her a Mortarch, she turned her enemies into her most dogged servants. Just as one more insult. So the curse dispatches what is essentially assassin knights. They favor anything that has speed, so you're going to see lots of Hex Wraiths, Dreadblade Harrows, Knight of Shrouds on steeds, that kind of thing. Anything that they can use to hunt, track, encircle, and eliminate the mark and anyone defending them. And while we don't often think of, knights as being equivalent to assassins, when you're talking about the Nighthaunt, where they usually just throw tens of thousands of spirits and bodies at a thing, having a specific tiny force of cavalry to go eliminate single targets does make them more of an assassination tool than pretty much anything else in her toolbox. Now, fun fact, there is only one known survivor of this curse. It is Bellacore, which is a pretty awesome thing. I think that all went down in the Broken Realms series, and he went toe-to-toe with Lady Olander. And while there's still some plot to be discovered there, he did manage to get out with his life for now. I just thought that was a cool thing to throw out. There's like one guy has resisted this, and of course it's like a demon of chaos. It's like, what are they going to do against Bellacore? At least in their old battletome, Bellacore could go toe-to-toe with the entire army. Now the next one is known as the Scarlet Doom. This is one of the two brand new processions that we got, and man, I like them. Because to them, it's not about aesthetics, meaning like the regal look of the aristocracy of Dolorum, and it's not about a mission, like the Emerald Host is, where they have a specific job. Instead, the Scarlet Doom are united by their manner of death, or rather, what happened after they died. These are the spirits of those whose bodies were butchered, eaten, or offered up after they were dead. Basically, they were denied the death rights that many civilizations have, and their corpses were all desecrated. So all these heroes and innocents are burning for some kind of justice for what happened to them. At some point, a number of these souls pleaded with Nagash to let them assault their former aggressors. So we're talking serial killers, cannibals, all that kind of stuff, and Nagash was all too happy to oblige. It's like, wow, I thought I had to force you guys to do everything. You're super excited about killing these one set of dudes? Yeah, go for it. Way to show initiative. This is going to look really good on your employee reports. And so while they do still serve the function of being a Nighthaunt procession, they'll take orders from Lady Olander and they'll, attack specific points, go to certain locations to reinforce themselves, whatever. They have a personal vendetta, a secret mission on top of that, against any factions that defile corpses. And that's, of course, how they define defiling a corpse, which could have some variation to it. But right off the bat, you're talking chaos factions who will kill, slaughter, and butcher bodies, offer them to chaos, that kind of thing. I feel like Khorne is a very obvious one there as they take skulls for trophies. The Maw tribes eat people. Maybe even the Daughters of Cain, depending on how the blood rites and rituals go. The only faction that I kind of makes me tilt my head a little bit in confusion is how do they feel about Flesh Eater Courts? Because Flesh Eater Courts and Nighthaunt have worked together in the past, but at the time this procession didn't exist. Flesh Eater Courts eat people, but they don't think they're eating people, so it's just kind of this weird, I don't really know how that fits in. Maybe that's when we just kind of play by ear. Then again, in Forbidden Power, the Flesh Eater Courts were against the Nighthaunt, so I don't know. It's kind of a wash. If you have an idea, throw in the comments down below. But another thing that makes the Scarlet Doom unique is their appearance. I mean, firstly, their literal appearance, that they radiate a red glow, which is super metal, compared to the green or the soft blue that other processions will do, but also, literally how they appear. They don't come out of a realm gate, they're not just randomly walking around. Instead, their main method of approach when they're looking at an enemy is pools of blood. If there are, let's say there's a bloodbound having a ritual slaughter and feast because they make blood reavers be cannibals to enter into the entire bloodbound, thing. Well, any little patches of blood on the ground or tables or altars will just start to erupt as blade geist come pouring out of the center and into the direct center of whatever army that is. So you're all having a feast and enjoying yourselves, and all of a sudden there's a Nighthaunt army in your face. So this procession is the bane of murderers, defilers, cannibals, and I like it because it really does show that one time where Nagash is cool with letting people do whatever they want. He's like, oh, go ahead, freestyle it. Take care of this however you want. You just want to go murder people, a very specific kind? Thumbs up, bro. Usually it's all you do what I say and you don't get your own opinion, but I like that he was able to, throw a little flexibility in there, kind of meet them halfway. Compromises make the dream work. And lastly, the final procession is the Quicksilver Dead, and I have to say, from a lore perspective, this is my absolute favorite. If I was going to do a Nighthaunt army, this is what I'd be rocking. Because it turns out, we met these guys way back in the first, entry parts of Age of Sigmar, back in the Realm Gate Wars, the first, kind of story arc that we had as players. The Stormcast Eternals in Chamon were hunting the Chaos Sorcerer Efrix, and in kind of following his trail, they came to an abandoned city. This is before Nagash had risen back up and the Legions of Nagash book existed, and it was one of the few naturally occurring pockets of undead that we got to see. It was actually the first time we ever saw a Banshee in the Age of Sigmar. The Quicksilver Dead are led by Selimnus of Anvrok. Again, that's the Banshee I was mentioning. And essentially, this is a city that existed in the Age of Myth that Chaos came in and just completely dumpstered. I mean, they were tortured, they were cannibalized, subjugated, enslaved, all these terrible things. And so when the Stormcast then arrive in the Age of Sigmar, it's a barren, empty city, nothing but tumbleweeds and despair, and a Chaos army comes to meet the Stormcast. Well, at the same time, all of these ghosts and spirit hosts and banshees and all these things, they rise up and rebel against the Chaos armies that tortured and destroyed them so long ago. So in this way, we had a small lore story where the Stormcast were kind of like fist-bumping buddies of the Nighthaunt. Now, regarding, the little bit of backstory that we do get on this particular city and faction, they used to make all kinds of cool things with their understanding of alchemy and metallurgy, all kinds of weapons and wonders of technology, because that's what Chamon was really about. Natural resources, minerals, gold, money, and innovation with technology. Their form, rather than being like the standard glowing blue or red of the Doom, is that of liquid metal. So they kind of have this white but shimmering metallic effect as they kind of drift around as spirits. They can change shape at will, so meaning if there was like a door that had a ward on it that would keep other Nighthaunt out, they can change their form to go like super slender and go underneath the door kind of a deal, rather than needing to phase through it. And this is a part of that alchemical thing where they don't have a true substance and they can manipulate that more than other Nighthaunt. But in their, their pain and their agony that's existed forever because of the massacre that happened to this city, they've flipped from being great creators, innovators of technology, to destroyers. We're going to use our knowledge of, science and all these kinds of stuff to undo everything that we find. They are the final remnants of an immense empire. And it was really cool for me to see, like, I don't know, I'm just a sucker for callbacks to the Rumgate Wars. Like, it's just my favorite thing. To me, it was the pinnacle of Age of Sigmar fantasy where there was no off limits. Everything was ridiculous and over the top. That's my kind of jam. I know it's not everybody's, but these little callbacks to the Realm of Metal, which I find to be highly interesting, just make me happy. I didn't see it coming, like, at all. I just thought that was a kind of a forgotten bit of lore. So with all of this said, let's talk about why these processions are so stinking cool. There's something to like about all of them, right? Whether it's the regal grandeur, having a specific task, a shared method of death, meaning the Scarlet Doom, all their guys got killed and butchered, or when they were alive, having a shared location. And I like that because it's easy for us as players, to kind of fit into a mold of one procession or the other, but keep in mind, the battletome goes out of its way to say there are thousands of processions, and the way that this outlines the different ways that Nighthaunt can come together, it offers a lot of room for you and I to do the same. You could have an army that's all from the same specific place, just make up your own city. Or were they given a specific job? Obviously the Emerald Host is the assassins of Lady O, but there could absolutely be other tasks that need to be done. Create the task and the army will follow. Just decide what unifies your Nighthaunt and what makes sense, and you're good to go. And that to me honestly is what sub-factions should do. Like, they're not meant to limit you and lock you in, but rather to showcase the different ways that an army can come together and different motivations. All 4 of these sub-factions have different reasons for being together and doing what they do. In addition to that, I think it's a really neat mix of old and new because we have references to, I'm just going to rocket them off here, Forbidden Power with the Legion of Grief, the White Dwarf magazine of the Emerald Host, the Rumgate Wars, and one of the older General's handbooks also had references to the city around Anvarok where the Quicksilver Dead were. And we have a brand new one, the Scarlet Doom. Rules-wise, I don't know, someone smarter than me is going to come along and tell you which of these is the quote-unquote best one, but in terms of a narrative spread for giving us as players motivation to create our own unique factions, I think it's top tier. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Like I said, my favorite lore-wise is the Quicksilver Dead. I would love to hear your thoughts. What is your favorite of the processions? There's not really a wrong answer because there's cool motivations for each and every one of them. I just want to hear what you get excited about. So leave that in the comments down below, and I will catch you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.